Time now for the story of the day. The Funeral Industry Regulatory Authority is proposing that an ombudsman be established to regulate the funeral industry and that undertakers be prohibited from paying commissions to hospitals, hospices and the clergy to secure bodies. While funeral parlours are known for charging inflated prices, we take a closer look at the sector's pricing and the services offered. ANN7's Mpoma Toho has the story.
While a funeral provides an opportunity for friends and family to pay their final respects and show support for one another, some people go to funerals to mingle, gossip and rub shoulders, and some to show off their fashion sense. While many people use funerals to splash money, many families are still not able to afford to bury their loved ones. But one funeral parlor, Wings of Deliverance, caters for low-income earners and those from poor background, among others.
We've got a standard package that is going for 7,999, though that excludes grave fee, reason being the cemeteries, the grave fees are different from cemetery to cemetery. So we will provide a standard coffin, a hearse, a family car, a screen for at home, the coffin stand. We'll provide a tent for at home, 40 chairs, 2 tables, 1 toilet, 100 color funeral programs, 1 grave marker.
The parlor has stretched its wings to other African countries, offering different services to bereaved families from Nigeria, Zambia, among others. But how much is the coffin and what makes them unique?
This one is the flat lid walnut coffin. It ranges from 3,500 rands. This one at the top here is the 3-tier walnut. It ranges from 7,500.
The undertaker has introduced burial society schemes and funeral policies to help their clients bury their loved ones. Some of them pay as little as 35 rand per month to 220 per month. This according to their different needs.
If you join today and something happens to you tomorrow, the Wings of Deliverance will only provide you with a coffin and mortuary facilities and removal. Then the rest of the services you will have to pay for. And then your policy will be fully effective after 6 months.
Meanwhile, Funeral Industry Regulator Authority is lobbying to be empowered to act as ombudsman of the industry that turns over at least 4.5 billion rand a year. If it succeeds, it will be among the busiest watchdogs in the country. Mpamato, ANN7 Johannesburg.
And joining us is Doriana and Dineo Masasanya, owners and co-owners of Wings of Deliverance Parlor. And we also have our financial advisor, Mduduzi Luthuli from Luthuli Capital. Thanks so much for your time. Just the business of death makes one very depressed and uncomfortable. But, you know, it's something that you obviously would have to plan for. Give us a little bit of a context, how the Wings of Deliverance has been passed on from generation to generation successfully.
As I've said, you know, I was born in the business. It was started by my late father, may his soul rest in peace. And we were brought into the business by him. And I started to be active in the business in 1991, if I could be precise. And the mother company, it is Associated Funerals. When I ventured into the business, I started my own company called Wings of Deliverance. And that's how I went into the business. Yes.
Do you know, it's evolved now that you would have to, obviously the regulatory aspect of it and different product offerings to your clients. I mean, what sets you apart from other undertakers?
Okay, at Wings of Deliverance, we always cater for the needs of the clients. So we don't set a standard price. We'll cater to what the specifications of the client is. So that's basically what we will do for our clients.
Yeah. Duduzi, you were saying that this is a market. I mean, it's a business that will always have a market because we have to exit and expire at some point. But, you know, is there such a thing as over-investing in death? In other words, you know, the funeral policies and the lavish funerals that we have, especially in the black culture. Is there such a thing that we overinvest in death?
I would say yes, there is such a thing because as black people, we put so much significance on our funeral being buried with dignity, and unfortunately less significance on the inheritance you leave behind and what is your legacy. Where's the dignity in that, you know? I constantly meet clients with multiple funeral policies from multiple providers, and I ask them, you're paying hundreds of rand, thousands of rands, how much do you actually need for your funeral? And very few people actually take the time to go to a funeral parlor and actually see what are the costs, how much will I need for a funeral? And because if you did just that simple exercise, you would realize that you don't need 150,000 rand, 200,000 rand for a funeral. That money can rather be redirected into saving or investing, or there are other insurance policies, life cover, like we said. If you have a family, it's not just, funeral cover is just for that one day. What happens after you're gone? You know, very few people seem to think that funeral cover is life cover. And it's very two different things. You know, I would say it's just start there. If you're someone with multiple funeral policies, go to a funeral parlor, ask them, what will be the cost?
Yeah.
You know?
Dorian, I mean, we've seen some very exorbitant cascades and, you know, where people splash or splurge, for that matter, during funerals. What do you think the minimum should be in terms of an investment putting aside for one's send-off?
In terms to, you know, funeral covers, they vary from company to company. Towards the funeral cover, I would say the minimum would be about 25 rand. But if we speak in terms of one saving, you know, for his own funeral, not in terms of buying a policy, the cheapest funeral in the market now would be around 7,000 rand.
Is this inclusive of the catering, the marquees, the buses, the aunties who are going to cook the ding and everything else?
No, it does not include that. That would cover basically your funeral needs in terms of a coffin, a hearse, a family car, a bus, and maybe the tents that they put at home, you know, for the people to gather in. That excludes, you know, the catering. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to talk about the evolution of the business in itself. I mean, and how competitive it's become. I've been to funerals where, number one, there's a DJ these days. Yeah. You know, call him DJ Graveyard or Graveside, whatever. And there's pamphlets. There seems to be an effort, you know, of doing a little bit of PR and marketing. There's fruit being put on a bowl. Is this, I don't know, sometimes it's just in bad taste, if you know what I mean. I don't know what, Dineo, your view is, or is it based on the client's needs and requirements?
Yes, it will differ funeral to funeral. It will be based on what the client will need. Though part of it will also be a bit of PR for the company when we do the funerals as well.
But you have these speakers blaring at each other and, you know, the preachers trying to speak over.
Yes, some families will want that because there's a lot of commotion at the gravesites. So they'll want the attendants to hear what the priest is saying at the service. Yes.
Let's talk policy then. You were talking about immediate family and extended family, primarily leaving an inheritance and not overinvest in the funeral itself. Can you expand on that?
Okay. Just also touching on a point that you mentioned. I think a lot of problems with funerals is that not enough people have wills. So when you pass away, it's actually left to your family to decide what happens, what are we going to do. And I think more people need to have wills and just say, look, I just want 1, 2, 3, and the rest must go to my family. Going on immediate and extended family. So when you have a funeral cover, a funeral policy, your immediate family will be seen as your spouse and your children. So your spouse would be obviously someone you marry with a marriage contract. We also recognize customary marriages, so mo kokilobola, that's fine.
But you have to have evidence of it.
You have to have evidence of it. Also, fat and sit. You know, some people don't realize if you're with someone for 6 months in the same house, they're viewed as your spouse. children is seen as obviously biological children.
Yeah, but there comes in the complication, though, because between the two of you, it may be a fat and sit situation, cohabiting.
Yeah.
But in the event of death, then the family of the surviving spouse will then come in and probably
And say
evict.
something. And then again, that comes back to just not having a will. So many fights that happen during funerals is it's left to the family to say, Tinalaika, we've always done it like this. And then the spouse might say, no, but I spoke to this person and he told me specifically, I want to be cremated, as an example, you know? And they say, no, you want to burn his body? We don't do that, you know? So those things, just have a will, put it down on paper, there's no arguments.
Yeah.
But,
Do you provide those services, or should one go, there's banks, I know, or other clients that can offer wills and that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, it is best, you know, things like wills to be left upon the lawyers and the banks to do that, you know. You definitely need an expertise. But as pertaining, as Mduduzi said, you know, there are instances whereby you find that a person would leave maybe a written affidavit with us and say, Dorian, if I passed on, I need you to dispose my remains by cremation, you see. And, you know, by law, I don't know, Mduduzi, that would be taken as a valid document because that is the wishes of the person that passed on, you know. But it is always, you know, imperative upon the person to speak to the families and say, if I die, I need to be buried in this way. Yeah. Or to have a will.
Correct. Is it maybe a conversation that we leave too late to deal with? You know, similarly with money. I don't know, my personal experience had been that there's certain things you don't discuss until the eventuality.
I think it's human nature to, some part of you never wants to truly accept that you are going to pass away. You know, you just think...
And he says that with a smile on his face. All right, can we just lighten the mood up in here?
It's human nature. Like you don't want to. And that's why we push these conversations as far as possible. You know, some people, they'll try and get insurance when something bad has happened. And yeah, I'm talking about maybe critical illness cover. When it's too late. And I mean, the biggest asset anyone has, whether you're investing or whatever, is time. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until it's literally putting out fires and you want us to become miracle workers, because then there's nothing we can do for you. Then people turn around and say, this thing, it's a gimmick, it's fraud, and you're like, no, you can't come when it's too late and want us to put something proper for you.
Yeah. Let's talk about the challenges, some of the problems, Dineo, in your sector.
Okay, some of the challenges that we face in our sector is that some families really don't have the means to bury the remains of their loved ones. So those are one of the challenges that we'll face. And then you'll find another instance whereby the family has different policies and with different funeral parlors, and that will be conflict among the families.
Okay, and you are left now to have to clean up the mess, as it were. Yeah.
And also with funeral policies, when you take them out, the amount of cover you can claim, the insurer looks at two things: your income and also the cost of your funeral. What I'm saying by that is, in our industry, you don't want something called enrichment, where you're better off after the fact. You know what I mean? Don't have funeral cover for 200,000-300,000 if your funeral is going to cost 40,000, because insurance companies talk to one another.
All right, so, and you can't claim the rest of it.
Exactly, and people think that. They think, oh, great, I'm going to have 20 policies, and when I pass away. No, that's what life cover is for. And then it's the same people who say, I've had this funeral cover, or my mother had this funeral cover, she was covered for 100,000, but we only received 20,000.
So what happens to the rest of the money? Is it legal, though, for the insurers to keep the rest of the money, or is the onus on them to explain that?
The onus is not on the insurance companies. It's on the person you speak to for financial advice. You know, if someone comes to me for funeral cover, it's for me to advise them and say, listen, do you realize such a situation exists? Because the insurance companies don't have to, and we can't pass the blame or that responsibility onto them. Or maybe they should shoulder some of that responsibility. But they're not doing anything illegal. I'm happy that they're saying they want to regulate the funeral industry a bit more, because I mean you can get funeral cover at any store. You know what I mean? It's just a shopping store, a grocery store, a shoe store. It's ridiculous.
Football clubs.
Football clubs, you know? And then it's because of that, because you can get it anywhere, that you're not actually getting advised on what this thing is supposed to do and how you should structure this thing. And you end up having 10 policies when you should actually just have one policy and then life cover.
Yeah. So I mean, there was a stage where I think the population numbers declined rapidly, especially before there was adequate treatment for HIV/AIDS-related diseases, to maybe the mortality stabilizing. I mean, how has that affected your business when the population is healthier? How does that impact?
Not really, Cindy. You know, as I view it, you know, I've been long in the industry, and there hasn't been any decline whatsoever about, you know, the funerals that we are conducting on weekends. Although the industry is so much fluctuated now, you find that there are lots of funeral practitioners. Every corner is just like supermarkets. But, you know, the epidemic of AIDS hasn't affected, you know, the market. Because prior to that, remember, we had those riots, violence, 80-something, 76, you know. And some thought that, you know, with the AIDS epidemic, you know, the industry would bloom. It hasn't bloomed, it has just stabilized the same as it was before.
Yeah,
you know?
Just out of curiosity, so how do you work on your sales projections, if you will? You know, do you say, okay, if 10 people died today, you know, per day until the end of the month, this is the sales that we're likely to make? Do you know?
Okay. Well, we don't have such a thing, but then we'll always have the clients that we know that, for instance, we'll say that in a weekend we are sure that we'll have about 4 to 5, not 4 to 5 funerals or more, yes.
I must say it's fascinating though. I mean, I'm just used to sitting there thinking, okay, it's not something that you explore on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
I just want to get back to, when it comes to the waiting period with a lot of policies, is that, you know, there's either 6 months and there's certain requirements in terms of your medical examinations, etc. What is within the law that people need to be aware of?
It slightly differs from insurance to insurer, but your standard ones are you have no waiting periods on unnatural death. So if you pass away in an accident, because I mean, no one wakes up trying to get into accidents. At least you hope no one wakes up trying to get into an accident. And then there's 6 months for natural causes, okay, and 24 months for suicide. So I always joke, whether right or wrong, if you're suicidal, just wait 2 years. And then do it, and then you can claim in your policy.
Yeah.
Also touch on something you mentioned in terms of rights. Most people never read documents until it's too late. So what I'm touching on there is the exclusions on the policy. So things like if you participate in a riot, if you commit a criminal act, and because of that you pass away. If you're part of a hazardous activity, so hazardous activity would be things like bungee jumping and skydiving. So they usually give you a quota, like you can do it once a year or twice a year. Anything above that, you need to inform the insurer. And also very important on your funeral policy is to look at the geographical region that it covers. Because if you pass away in certain areas, your funeral policy doesn't kick in.
Yeah.
You know, things like that,
Yeah. And just dealing with the cultural dynamics when it comes to life cover as opposed to a funeral policy, you know, there seem to have been a stigma that says lifula haila mphidisa. In other words, you see a spouse flourishing and, you know, having this lavish lifestyle because of a life cover. But it's not something that we encourage a lot, and I'm generalizing, I know. Do you think that this is a conversation to be had? Do you know?
Okay, yes, it is a conversation to be had, because now it is true that people will splurge on their policies, the outcomes of their policies. But then I also think that oh, sorry, I didn't get the question.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, in terms of financial, this again is not about the event of the person or the deceased. It is about the loved ones who still have to go on with life without them. And if they're in a financial difficulty, yeah.
I think to help off there, I always say to me, to my wife as an example, she's 100% beneficiary on my life cover. I mean...
And you don't sleep with one eye open?
No, I mean, first of all, if I have to sleep with one eye open, why am I married to the person, number one? Number two, for goodness sake, I just passed away. I'm supposed to be the love of her life. So what if she flourishes? Is that not the intent? That obviously they can't replace my life. So why should, on top of suffering the loss of my life, then suffer financially?
Yeah.
And also people forget that life cover has also evolved. The biggest problem is always that you give someone 5 million rand, are they going to spend it wisely and use it for what you intended them to do, to look after your wife and your kids? You can annuitize that life cover now, meaning you don't have to give it to people as a lump sum. You can actually give it to them as a monthly income. So, because no one is used to handling millions, but most of us are happy to be getting income of 30, 40, 50,000 for the rest of our life, as an example.
Yeah. And how do burial societies impact?
Yeah, just to add before we come on that one, I think the main purpose of taking a life cover, Mduduzi, the intention is always good, so that those that you leave behind shouldn't suffer, because they wouldn't have been having somebody like a breadwinner. It is only bad if the people it happens. You find that some people, they would go to an extremes of eliminating the partner in order to benefit. It happens. We read about it every day.
Yeah.
That is bad if it comes to that. But coming back to the question of burial societies, the informal sector of contributing towards burial covers, it is a problem in our people, because they are a little bit not formal, and they are not they don't have standards, they are not regulated. You find that they just contribute on a monthly basis, and along the way one would come and say, no, I need to replace this person with this one. Seeing that there's danger coming, and hence they don't progress. And we always advise them to go to people like Mduduzi, to have people that can underwrite them, so that even if whatever happens, they are not in a danger of collapsing.
Yeah. Mduduzi, just quickly contact details where our viewers can get hold of you for financial planning and all things
Sure, so they
related.
can go to our website, www.lutulicapital.com. They can send us an email at info@lutulicapital.com, or they can call me on 083-534-54196. I'm ashamed to say I don't know our landline.
Yeah, and there's one number too many, but anyway, we got Lutuli Capital.
lutulicapital.com. That's our website. It's got our full contact details, or info@lutulicapital.com.
Yeah, do you know your contact details?
Yeah.
Okay, they can find us at Wings Funerals. That's our email address. It's wingsfunerals@telkom.sa. Our landline is 011-334-2089. Our cell phone number is 082-416-7897.
7897, got it. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, much appreciated. Of course, talking about the business of funerals and the importance of investing in, at least to leave a legacy.